You meet someone new. Within seconds before they've said more than a sentence or two, some quiet part of you has already decided whether you like them. You couldn't explain exactly why. Maybe it's their shirt, their accent, the way they laughed at something. But the real reason your brain made that snap judgment is far stranger than personal taste. It has almost nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with a survival system that is still, to this day, sorting every person you meet into one of two categories, us or them. You still pick favorites like a tribe, and your brain does it faster than you can consciously think. Start with an experiment that should unsettle you a little. In the 1970s, researcher Henri Tajfel ran a series of studies now considered classics in social psychology. He took a group of strangers who had never met each other and split them into two groups, using something as trivial and meaningless as a coin flip or a preference for one abstract painting over another. There was no history between these people, no shared culture, no real stakes, nothing. And yet almost immediately, participants began favoring their own randomly assigned group, giving members of their own team more rewards, judging them more positively, even when doing so cost them something. Tajfel called this the minimal group paradigm, and the conclusion was almost unsettling. Humans don't need a real reason to divide the world into us and them. A coin flip is enough. Why would a brain be built to do that? Because for most of human history, knowing exactly who belonged to your group was not a matter of preference. It was a matter of survival. Researcher Robin Dunbar spent years studying the cognitive limits of human social groups and found that the human brain appears optimized for maintaining stable relationships with roughly 150 people, a number now commonly called Dunbar's number. Beyond that circle, in the ancestral world, unfamiliar humans were not simply strangers. They were potential threats, competitors for the same limited resources, or members of a rival group with entirely different loyalties. A brain that could instantly sort friend from stranger had an enormous advantage. This sorting had to happen fast, and it had to happen with almost no information. Here's where it gets stranger. Researcher Marilyn Brewer studied what she called in-group bias, and found that people don't necessarily dislike outgroups intensely. Often they simply favor their own group more, extending trust, warmth, and cooperation more readily to people who feel familiar. This distinction matters. Tribalism isn't always about hating the other side. Sometimes it's simply about an automatic boost of goodwill toward anyone who seems to belong to you, triggered by the smallest, most arbitrary signals imaginable. A shared hometown, a matching accent. Even, as Tajfel's experiments showed, a coin flip. So, what counts as a signal of belonging? Almost anything will do. Shared language, obviously, but also shared humor. Similar clothing, the same slang, a familiar walk, a recognizable laugh. Researcher Robert Kurtzban studied how quickly the brain categorizes people by group markers and found that race surprisingly is not processed as automatically or rigidly as many assume. Instead, his research suggested that team affiliation, something as simple as wearing the same colored jersey, could override racial categorization almost entirely in how quickly the brain grouped people together. The ancestral brain isn't obsessed with any one specific marker. It's obsessed with pattern matching to whatever signals coalition membership in that moment. This single detail should completely reshape how you think about modern group identity. Think about how effortlessly you already do this. You feel an instant, unearned warmth toward a stranger wearing your college's sweatshirt in another city. You feel a flicker of connection with someone who shares your specific, oddly niche taste in music. Sports fandoms exploit this ancient wiring almost perfectly, dressing strangers in identical colors and watching genuine loyalty and camaraderie bloom between people who 20 minutes earlier had never spoken a word to each other. None of this is learned so much as it is triggered. The brain sees the marker, and the tribal machinery quietly switches on. Now here's the twist that makes this story genuinely strange. This same tribal wiring that creates warmth and cooperation inside a group is the exact same wiring responsible for some of humanity's darkest chapters. Researcher Muzaffar Sharif demonstrated this directly in a now famous study known as the Robber's Cave experiment. He took a group of ordinary young boys at a summer camp, split them into two teams, and within days, without any real conflict of interest, beyond simple competition, hostility, name-calling, and even outright aggression developed between groups that, just days earlier, had been strangers with no history of animosity at all. The line between healthy group loyalty and dangerous hostility, Sharif's research suggested, is disturbingly thin and disturbingly easy to trigger. This is the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath every instinct you've ever felt toward the people around you. The same mental machinery that makes you loyal to your friends, your family, your favorite team, your country, is fundamentally the same machinery that under the wrong conditions can curdle into suspicion, exclusion, and hostility toward anyone standing outside that circle. You are not choosing your tribal instincts. You inherited them fully assembled from ancestors who could not afford to be wrong about who was safe to trust. So what do you do with a brain like this? You can't switch it off. It's not a bug you can patch. But understanding it changes something important. That instant warmth you feel towards someone who shares your jersey, your hometown, your inside joke, isn't proof that they're actually more trustworthy or more worthy of your loyalty. It's a shortcut, built for a world with far fewer people in it, doing its best to keep up with a world it was never designed for. And that instant coolness you feel towards someone who seems different, who speaks differently, dresses differently, roots for a different team, that isn't necessarily insight either. Often, it's the exact same ancient circuit, just running in reverse on flimsier evidence than you'd ever consciously accept if you slowed down and actually looked at it. Think about how much of your daily life is quietly shaped by tribal signals you've never consciously noticed. The instant credibility you extend to someone who mentions the same hobby you love. The subtle distance you feel toward an unfamiliar accent in an unfamiliar place. The loyalty you feel toward a brand, a school, a hometown team, none of which has ever done a single thing for you personally, and yet all of which can make you feel, for a moment, like you belong to something larger than yourself. That feeling of belonging isn't an illusion. Exactly. It's ancient, and it's real. And it kept small groups of vulnerable humans alive long enough to become you. But it was built for tribes of a few dozen people who actually knew each other's names, not for a world of billions of strangers sorted instantly by jersey colors, accents, and coin flips. You meet someone new. Within seconds, before they've said more than a sentence or two, some quiet part of you has already decided whether you like them. It feels personal, like a judgment only you could make. But it isn't really about them at all. It's a survival instinct older than memory, quietly still running, still sorting the world the only way it ever learned how. Us or them.